just focus solely on this and giving all of my time to what was important to me and what my dream was, I think is what made the difference. I was able to then hire people that I needed to help me. I didn't have as much distraction.
This is the Aesthetics Growth Podcast.
It is Breath. Hey, everybody, and we're back with another episode of the Aesthetics Growth Podcast. And today I'm really excited to introduce our guest. It's Ashlee Hess with PS Wellness and Aesthetics, based out of Bayshore, Kansas. Ashlee, I'm excited because we met in person, and today's going to be a great opportunity for me to get to know you better, of course, and our audience, because you're a board-certified nurse practitioner. You've worked within the fast-paced environments of the emergency room. You've grown your business from, moving from that hustle into a different hustle. I'm really excited to get into everything today. So would you mind just giving the audience a little bit of an intro, and we'd love to understand, how you got started within the world of aesthetics?
Yes. So I did, like you said, I started out in the emergency room, spent my whole career basically there, and went back to school in 2018 for my nurse practitioner. And while I was in NP school, I started taking some classes for aesthetics, and really fell in love with it. Knew that I wanted to start helping people kind of in a different way than I had been in the emergency room for so long. And once 2020 kind of happened, things kind of changed, probably not just for me, but for a lot of people. And I just felt like I needed to do something else. I was a little bit burnt out. And so I started renting a room, probably the size of my bathroom that I have now in my med spa, in a little wellness center, about 30 minutes from us. And I just got really busy and things took off. And so I opened my own med spa.
Awesome. Well, that really paints a picture as well when you have that spot that's the size of the bathroom in your basically in your office today. What was it? So obviously, you kind of walked the street there, with COVID. Was there what had to happen for you to kind of align to actually jump in and get started with, moving into that space initially? I'd love to understand what that was like. And then we can talk through as far as what the evolution has been throughout the last number of years to the point where, you're still growing. You've hired team members. I'd love to try and connect some of those dots there for the audience that's listening.
So how I finally made the jump to do it, like I said, I was grateful. And I got really busy and started seeing quite a few people. But I was doing that almost every single day. So I was working in the emergency room. And then on my days off, I was also seeing patients. And also that's when the GLP-1s kind of got popular. And so I started getting really busy with that as well, along with the aesthetic side of things. And so it was really taking most of my days. And so I just got to a point where I was like, I have to make a decision. I'm not going to be able to be, the best provider that I want to be and be able to help my patients the way I want to, trying to juggle the emergency room and also try and be successful in my own med spa. So I just made the decision to try one. I figured what was going to happen.
How long did you juggle both? What was that timeline when you were?
Oh man, I probably did that for a year. Maybe a little bit less than that. But luckily it worked out well. I opened this up and I continued to stay busy.
Yeah, for sure. I noticed like to kind of burn the candle at both ends, but when you're working in the ER, and then on your days off, kind of those recuperation days, you're getting at it and getting after it. And, what was that like how did you maintain, sort of quote unquote balance might not be the right word, but just the energy to really get off the ground and make that happen?
Oh, it was very difficult, but it was so rewarding, seeing my patients that were, feeling so much better about themselves, having so much more confidence, not only with just like the aesthetic side of things, but like my patients that were losing weight and, seeing them come in, the very first time and they're pretty down and out and, feel like nothing has worked for them before. And then finally seeing something that's like made a change for them was amazing. It was like, I want to do more of this for people. It actually, changed their lives, made them, helped them show up differently.
Yeah. I know from speaking with you, you're very passionate about obviously the wellness and the aesthetics, everything comes together to, I think it's on your Instagram where you talk about, kind of empowering people to be better versions of themselves. What is there anything particular, when we talk about that transformation, is there any particular examples or instances of, the rewards that you've got from seeing that transformation? Maybe, I know not to name names, we can't do that, but just any examples of patients or types of transformations that you've really enjoyed?
I mean, I've had so many patients that not even just from the weight loss, but just in general from hormone therapy even. I've had patients after we've started them on hormones and got all of their hormones balanced, that their lives just improved so much that they're like they're excited that they're showing up for things again, feeling like that they'll say like, I didn't hate my husband. My hormones were just not right. So I think all of that plays such a part with our mental health, how we feel about ourselves,
Mm,
um, not just on the outside, but on the inside. And I think just seeing that in people, that change in people has just been very rewarding. That's been my driving
yeah.
force.
Awesome. Awesome. Is there any particular favorite? It's hard to be a favorite, but treatments that will say you really love to do?
On the aesthetic side,
Yeah, both really, aesthetics, wellness. Is there any particular ones that you really love doing?
oh, I love doing filler. I feel like it's the instant gratification for people. Same with like CO2. I mean, that helps with skin resurfacing so much, and people get notice such a change in their skin after doing it. But it's just like the peptides and the hormones and the weight loss, I feel like it's so transforming for people.
Yeah, glad you went there, because there's always trends within the industry and things can change fast, it seems. But what have you been noticing when it comes to the type of treatments that you mentioned there, peptides, and how you're maybe combining some of these treatments for the outcomes that patients are looking for? What sort of trends are you noticing in the space? Actually, would love to get your pulse on what's happening.
Oh, I think it's changing so fast. I mean, it's changed so much just even from when I've started, not that long ago. And so I think that we're changing things with, like I said, the wellness side of things. So we're trying to fix ourselves kind of from the inside and kind of replace the things that we're not making as we age anymore. And people are just finding things that are helping, like I said, with the peptides, they're helping them lose weight, but not also lose weight, but also to build muscle, to kind of um, help with anxiety, to help with depression, all kinds of different things. I mean, there truly is like a peptide for everything. And I feel like the space is is really going towards that.
Mm.
I went to
You know,
a conference maybe 2 years ago, the peptide conference in Malibu. And it was just such a cool experience to see all the different things that we have to offer. And like, it's super exciting to kind of see where it's going to go. Even just with like, again, mental health and like the things that they're doing and finding and improving that we just haven't had before is pretty cool.
That's awesome. What kind of, when it comes to those types of treatments and even the mental health aspect, how do you find that patients are coming to you with those conversations, or is it education that you're doing? Like, just with that, because it's almost like the type of conversations that you're having today at your office are going to be different than what somebody was having 5 years ago, because you're able to do so much more. There's so much more kind of like, overlap with the types of treatments that you can provide. As you mentioned, people think maybe med spa, Botox fillers, but now we're talking about really getting into this regenerative, that there's wellness, and as you mentioned, kind of that aspect of mental health, which is associated with confidence and things like that as well.
Yeah, so I feel like it all kind of comes together. Like you said, it's kind of packaged together. And so many people are on medications for anxiety or for depression. And when we're kind of talking about those things and getting labs and balancing their hormones and making sure everything else is piecing together, those are conversations we're having, that there are other alternatives for their anxiety, that maybe they want to try, that doesn't necessarily come with the side effects or possibly dependency that some of the traditional medicines are that we are known to normally take. So I think a lot of patients are really open to that now and are really looking for other alternatives.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And the education piece is so important. Love to know how do you approach that? From going from zero to like an established practice, and really making some impact in your community from both treating patients but also hiring staff. What way do you approach that from, educating patients in the marketplace as you grow?
On the different options that we have.
Yeah. Yep.
So I do a lot of social media and talk a lot on social media about different options that people have for different things. So I think education has been huge. Um, especially in my area, I think a lot of people don't know a lot about those things yet. So just educating my patients on different things that are out there, I think has been huge.
Hmm. How about when it comes to actually with the consultation? It's always interesting. It's some different approaches, different, time slots. For new patients primarily, of course. How do you and your team approach that with a new patient coming for the first time, and that consultation?
So obviously during a consultation, you're going over all of your medical history and current medications that you're on and kind of your goals and things that you're wanting to improve. And so at that time, that's when I'll discuss the different options we have. I think just talking to the patient, listening to them, finding out kind of what their goals are, you can find out a lot in that consultation on kind of what is important to them and what they're looking for. Um, and then be able to present and educate on different options that are out there. I
Mhm.
think that's a lot of it. I think we just don't know what's available.
Right. I was just going to kind of suggest as well with the consultation, you just don't know. Every patient is different, and with the range of treatments that you're now offering from, wellness and aesthetics, and it sounds like, adding more, of course, as time goes on, you're able to treat patients in much deeper ways to help them along their journey. What does that typically look like with that, kind of putting together the treatment plan for you and your team, through that process?
So like I said, it depends on what they're coming in for a consultation. So if they're coming in for something that's more of the wellness side of things, like I said, we'll kind of discuss their medical history and what it is that they're looking to achieve or what they're unhappy with at the moment. And then we just discuss different options. So we do a full lab panel and make sure their thyroid is okay and that their hormones look okay. We just kind of go over the whole entire picture, and then kind of decide together on what the best option is.
Gotcha.
Is that
How about any what was that?
I didn't know if I answered your question.
No, that's great. I think that's awesome. No, it's always good to hear, and especially like you mentioned with they come in from a certain direction. Whether it's hormone therapy, and I'm not sure it was on your social media I saw recently, and it was pretty funny with like a gift for your spouse, get them hormone treatment,
Yeah.
and it kind of went into like a funny meme on the whole thing. But patients coming in from different angles, right? And you might have a patient or a client coming in for maybe we'll just say fillers or Botox, right? But then as you get that relationship and you develop that rapport with them and they understand and you educate them to that just from that relationship, right? Then they're understanding more about hormone treatment and the different and peptides and things like that. And maybe on the other side too, you've got someone who's coming in for hormone therapy, but they develop that relationship with you and now they're interested in some more of the aesthetics as well. Do you find that quite a lot?
Absolutely. And I think when you establish the relationship with them on this wellness side and you're actually diving deep and, really discussing things that are important to them and things that are truly like, making their life a little bit harder, these people are going to trust, your patient's going to trust you a lot more. Because it's hard to trust somebody with your face if you don't know them, or what they can
Yeah.
provide. So I think by kind of helping them on this other level, you create a different relationship with them that creates, trust. And there's been a lot of education. And then at that point, when you're feeling a little bit better about yourself, you start to kind of treat yourself and want to do
Mhm.
things, on the other side as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. How about actually on the kind of the misconception side, right? There's always a lot of ways that people think about things. What have you noticed are some of the biggest misconceptions within wellness and aesthetics, maybe that you're seeing or you're hearing, and which ones would you really love to change? Maybe things that have become outdated.
Definitely that you are going to look unnatural. So you don't have to look unnatural. I think the days of the pillowy face and huge duck lips are out. So
Mhm.
I think the idea is to have a more natural appearance. I think that that's out. I think also that GLP-1s are cheating, or that that women don't need testosterone, or that hormone therapy is bad. I think all of those misconceptions are I think those are kind of going going away.
Yeah, there's a long list there. Do you typically, address those or touch on them? Is it normally through that consultation, or how are you kind of overcoming some of those misconceptions?
Yeah. So when people will come in, they've never had lip filler before, they've never had cheek filler, and they're like, listen, I don't want to look like a duck, or I don't want to look, overdone. I explained to them, that that's not something that, that I want them to look like either. And so,
Yeah.
we just kind of talk through those things. But yeah,
Awesome. Cool. How about like, when it comes to growing the business to where you are today, and how many years has it been now, Ashley?
2 years. It was 2 years in April.
2 years in April. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So now got a couple of seasons, a couple of cycles. When you look back and you reflect over the 2 years, what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned as you look back over some of those milestones?
Oh man. So a lot. I think a lot, to be kind of, I should have been, I know it's not been that long, but to be a little more patient with yourself. Like you're not going to just open up and it's just going to, have everybody flocking at your door. It takes some time sometimes.
Yeah.
And we don't learn how to run a business in school. So, there's a lot of things that we have to learn along the way. And they kind of hurt sometimes. But I feel like those things are what help you grow. That's what helps you do better.
What were some of those when you mentioned some of the things that hurt? I could really, I could feel your pain there. What were some of those moments?
I think that this is kind of your baby. You start this, you put all of your time and effort into it. Like I said, I was working at this 7 days a week. So, you want it to go well. You don't want anything to you're babying it. So, you do need help though along the way. And so I think allowing people in to kind of help you, take some time. And so trusting yourself and being able to realize maybe what things you lack that you need other people's help in is huge. And I think that just takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, for sure. When you mentioned time, by the way, I often joke with people, certainly with my wife as well, that I've got this really kind of like, frictional relationship with time. It's like I'm always in friction because, my patience levels can be quite thin sometimes. And especially like you said, when you're growing a business and, you put the work in, you want it to happen yesterday.
Yeah.
But it's interesting too, right? When you look over like 2 years can go by pretty quick.
For sure.
But there's so much that happens in that time as well, right?
Yeah. I've definitely learned a lot.
Yeah. So when you look at it, like almost like if you're going to articulate the kind of stages that you've been through so you started and you had referrals and word of mouth, right? And you had the kind of the other people in the facility there in the salon as well. What were some of those like stages, or how would you describe them from, where you were then to where you are now, perhaps?
I think honestly, like taking the step to just focus solely on this and not working in the hospital also, and giving all of my time to what was important to me and what my dream was, I think is what made the difference. I was able to then focus all of my efforts on that. I was able to actually, hire people that I needed to help me, and I didn't have as much distraction. I mean, it's hard enough as it is. So,
Yeah.
being able just to focus everything on that, I think made a huge difference on where I would have been had I stayed in that situation versus now. So, having the guts to do that, took a lot, but it was the best decision.
So I want to break down a couple of things there. You talk more about guts, definitely the hiring piece. When it comes to I suppose just that guts, determination. When things got tough, and inevitably they do at some stage, what was that kind of kept pulling you through? You mentioned the dream and the vision. So I'd love to, sort of break that down, because I think that's going to be so strong when you have that clear vision and that goal, you kind of know where you want to go. Would you maybe just describe that a little bit, actually, with relative to your experience?
I don't know. I just kind of felt like I just kept being kind of pulled to this. Like things just kept happening, and this was just what was supposed to happen. I remember when I was working in the ER, I was working with a physician there, a locum, and he was talking about taking some classes, for learning how to do Botox and filler. And I'd already been, doing that. And we were kind of talking about it. And I was like, I'm going to open a big med spa one day. And he's like, well, how are you going to get patients? And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, you just think you're going to get patients? And I was like, I have no idea. Like, I just felt like I was supposed to. Like, I was supposed to do more than what I was doing. Even though what I was doing was fulfilling at the time, I just kept being drawn to this path. And I don't know.
I remember this is kind of the conversation we had when we met at that event. To me, it sounds like there's, you've just got that inherent desire and drive, and you're figuring it out no matter what, because you care so much about your patients and
Right.
that vision, that dream that you had. What did that look like, actually? That kind of, when you're in the ER, right, or you're in driving along, or whatever that quiet moment is like. What did it look like for you as far as that business venture and where you would be, X amount of years into the future?
So ultimately, my goal was to be able to help people feel better about themselves and be able to give them the confidence to show up in life the way that they want to. And that means, all the things that I'm offering people to give them the motivation or to give them the drive to go and to feel better about themselves. I wanted to also be able to provide a space that I could allow other women to work with me and be able to give them the opportunity to do that as well and kind of set their own destiny, the way that I felt like I was, able to do.
Awesome. And that's kind of, leading into, I was going to talk about the hiring piece, right? And you're empowering, team members, women in your community to, to kind of improve their lives by coming to work with you. How's that been? How's the whole hiring experience and journey been? And I know that's something people love to talk about, and there's
Yeah.
all kinds of different stories. I'd love to hear yours.
Yeah, so that's always tough. That's a tough piece, but I'm learning to do that as well a little bit better. You just have to make sure that the people that you hire kind of align with what your goals are and what your core values are as well, so that everybody fits together. And sometimes that can be, difficult. And I think that's a huge learning curve as well as you grow.
Mm. Yeah, for sure. Core values is something that I spoke about it with quite a few guests, actually. And it's almost, I'm not sure how it was for you, but it's one of those things that, you have to have somebody almost make sure that you understand how important it is as
Right.
you're getting your team and your tribe together. Otherwise, it's like, I'll skip over that. I'll get to it later, and stuff can fall apart. What was that process like for you when it came to, did you do that up front, like whatever you were supposed to, and you had your core values, or was it, let's go, and then you kind of filled it in a little bit later?
Well, I've learned a lot about that, even from where we met at
Hmm.
the Med Spa Militia with Marley.
Yeah.
But my goal was to, after the first hiring process that I had done and it didn't work, you have your issues, was to make sure I focused more on that and letting the people that you're hiring know kind of where you stand and what things are really important to you with your values. And I think that that's
Mm.
huge. So either they're, either intimidated by that, or they're happy to hear that because that aligns with them as well. So, either way it kind of works itself out.
Yeah, I know we spent a little bit of time talking about that at the Med Spa Militia event, and it's difficult, right? Because sometimes you have to have those tough conversations and just figure out, like, how everything works. Just based off where you are today with, PS wellness and aesthetics, what would you, if there was any advice you could give to somebody who was, where you were even a year ago, they're in the middle of it, what advice would that be? You mentioned patience. Is there anything else that you would, if you had that arm on your shoulder a year ago, that you would tell yourself or tell that person who's growing their med spa?
I think it would still be kind of along those lines. Like, you've got to be um patient with yourself and also forgiving. Like, we don't know
Mm.
what we don't know. And the whole idea is to learn. And we can't learn without making mistakes. So I think there is no like easy way out. I think a lot of people try and find that, and a lot of people try and sell that, that there's some easy way. And sometimes the only way is to kind of go through it and learn these things. But I would
Yep.
definitely make sure that um, have all of your processes in place, and, do have a good team behind you. Marketing is huge. Um, Social media is where we, kind of find our patients, and our patients find us now. So, those are
Mm.
all huge aspects to things that are very important.
But I mentioned that with the marketing piece as well. You mentioned, social media, and you've from what I've seen as well, just been kind of really putting yourself out there more with some really good social media. What's been some of the kind of trends that you've seen then when it comes to the marketing piece, and just reaching more people in your area as you're looking to continue growing your business? What's been working, and what's not?
So I think even when I first started, it's crazy how much that's even changed. So like before, it might have been, just some words on a screen that, for marketing. And now people really want to hear from you. As uncomfortable as it might be, you really have to be the educator. You have to get on there, and your patients want to hear from you and, kind of hear what you have to say. I think it makes it more personable. And I think then they get to know kind of where you're coming from and kind of your personality to make sure that you vibe with each other even.
Yeah,
So I think
100%.
that's changing a lot.
And actually, I've seen loads of your stuff. Do you have somebody in-house that's like recording and shooting? How have you been able to manage that with your team to keep the kind of the volume of that personalized content coming?
Yes, so I do. I have someone that helps with my social media. We also have someone else that comes in and kind of records and makes reels and things like that with them. So I have kind of a combination. But it's been, I think it's been really organic, and it's been really good how the market, how our social media has presented itself, I think. And so it's created a good following, I think.
Awesome. I love it. I know you really nailed it as well when you mentioned kind of like what used to work on those platforms, which words and like less personality. Now you're right. Now it really demands it. Consumers demand it, getting to know their provider or somebody who they're going to develop a relationship with.
Yeah.
And that's awesome to see what you've done there as well. So congrats on that.
I feel like you almost have to set yourself apart,
For sure. Actually, how about, are you for having a little bit of fun now? We have what's called rapid fire round.
Okay.
I'm going to come back to you with a couple of questions, maybe two or three. So some easy ones. Like when it comes to, we met at an event, obviously, but what are some of your favorite industry events? Are there any particular ones that you love going to?
Yes. So I loved Marley's event that I went to. That was amazing. I learned so much from that. I learned more from that than I even expected to going into it. And so, there was a lot of, after leaving that, like I felt I learned a lot that I wasn't expecting to. It was very intense, but it was good.
Awesome. The men's Bible issue, that was tremendous.
Yeah.
How about when it comes to the best piece of advice? We kind of spoke about some advice that you give to other people, but what would be some of the best advice that you've ever received?
Oh, best advice I've ever received. Like you got to go for it. Like you have to be uncomfortable. Being uncomfortable is where growth is. And if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. So that would probably be, because that's hard. It's so hard to put yourself out there, but you have to do it to be able to grow.
As you were talking, it kind of reminded me, my family and I, we ended up, actually it was just my wife and I did not watch it's called Air. It's the movie about Phil Knight growing Nike business with Michael Jordan, but basically just do it. That's what I was hearing there is just do it. And it sounds like you've really gone for it and obviously just done it a lot throughout your career. And I think that's really the key, because it's so easy to slip into in every walk of life, especially with social media and comparisons and stuff coming at you, kind of analysis paralysis. So kudos to you for pushing forward and for growing PS Wellness and Aesthetics to this point. When you look forward, actually, at the next 2 years, because you've done so much in 2 years, what does that look like for you, and what does that look like for the business?
So I will be in a larger building, which we're in the process of that now. But
exciting.
Just growing and being able to help my community more with things that I want to do. There's a lot of different things that I have in store that I want to provide for my community. But just a lot of growth. Like I think that we'll be able to offer a lot of different things. Like I said, even for other people to be able to have the opportunity to help the community also with their own, own wellness and own services that they can provide.
Awesome. Super excited. Well, no doubt we'll definitely love to have you back on the show again in maybe not 2 years, maybe a little bit sooner, just to see your continued trajectory and to have the audience hear your story. Actually, if someone wants to reach out and connect and learn a little bit more about what you're up to, about what's happening in the business, what would be the best way for someone to do that, to reach out?
So Instagram, we're on Instagram at PS Wellness Aesthetics. Also, you can find us on Facebook. And then our online, our website as well.
Excellent. It's been so cool to get to meet you again, to hear more about this story, and I know the audience is going to love it as well. So thanks so much for coming on board and sharing your story today, and look forward to catching up and having you on the show again in the near future.
Yeah,
hopefully.
thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely.
Hey, it's Brett here with ClinicGrower, and I've got a quick favor to ask. If you're loving the Aesthetics Growth podcast, go ahead and hit that like or hit that subscribe, more importantly, so that we can keep bringing you the best of the industry. I really want want this to be impactful and the highest quality, and the best way that you can help us to do that is to hit that like, hit that subscribe. And remember, if you would like to be a guest on the Aesthetics Growth Podcast, go to clinicgrower.com/podcast.
This is the Aesthetics Growth Podcast.